Hello.
How are you doing, Duncan?
Right, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Love that backdrop.
Ah, yeah, they're nice, aren't they? Takes a
Yeah.
while. This is I built this during COVID. This is Studio Central. This is where I did about God knows how many virtual broadcasts from during COVID. I don't really need it as much these days because the call for virtual keynote sort of went out the window when we got back together. But so it's just where I do my podcast.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Cool. So thank you for taking the time, first of all.
Yeah, no worries.
Loving the book. It's fantastic.
Well, I just wanted to do something I've never done. I love doing things that I have no idea how to do. So
Yeah.
when we were opening Toy Story, I thought, okay, I'm going to send Buzz Lightyear into space, and people are like, well, how the hell are you going to do that? I said, well, I don't know, but I'll give it a go. And in fact, it was my son's Buzz Lightyear that went up to space. I went off to meet with NASA. There were about 23 people in the room. I'm a great believer in, you make your pitch. People can say yes, they can say no, they can laugh, they can put the phone down. Who cares, right? So there's about 23 people in the room and me, the little PR guy from Disney. I was in PR at the time. And I pitched the idea, and you could tell that half the room just loved the idea of taking Buzz
Mm.
Lightyear into space, but nobody was going to stick their neck out, right, and say, I love the idea. And you could tell that half the room just wanted to throw me out through the window without opening it first. So the guy at the end of the table, very much the John Wayne, waistcoat, buzz cut, and he goes, well, if we're going to take Buzz Lightyear into space, we have to take him out on a spacewalk. I thought, oh shit, did NASA just agree to take Buzz Lightyear? Anyway, so fast forward 6 months to go to launch. I get a call from Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. They said, we need Buzz Lightyear here tomorrow. He's like, why? I mean, the launch is 6 months ago. They said, well, we need two identical Buzz Lightyears here tomorrow. I was like, why? They said, well, we're going to take one of them apart molecule by molecule. I was like, because? They said, well, if there's if there's a little plastic bubble inside his plastic, that would create a vacuum and could explode in the zero gravity and pressure of space and then injure an astronaut. I was like, oh yeah, I totally knew that. So I thought, okay, so then I found out, at the time that was where the Jingle Bells film from. It was Disney had totally underestimated the demand for Buzz Lightyear, right? So Buzz was sold out, and I thought I had 37 team members in all the big department stores. I thought, don't tell me this deal is going down because the Walt Disney Company can't find Buzz Lightyear. So somebody found one, and this was 2003 now. So the days before smartphones, I'm up against the FedEx deadline. I'm now panicking. I thought, I can solve this. So I get in my car, and I get a call on the old motor. You remember the Motorola Flip? Still the coolest
Yeah.
phone on the planet,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Bomb. So because you couldn't see who it's on, and all you heard was "To infinity and beyond." I was like, "Who the hell is this?" It was my wife. She goes, "It's me, dear." I said, "Well, where did you get it?" She said, "Well, it's underneath James's bed. It's been there for 5 years collecting dust." I was like, "Oh, get it over." So I wrote James on his foot, just as Andy had written his name on Woody's foot, and I sent the two buzzes off to NASA. And I said, "Look, don't destroy this one. This is a real little Buzz Lightyear's, real little boy's Buzz Lightyear." So 6 months later, we were invited down to the launch at Cape Kennedy. And I was like, I was getting all emotional. My little boy's going to space. It was pathetic. So he was up there for 18 months, the longest serving consecutive astronaut in space. And then he was coming down, and it was a bad weather day, so the shuttle couldn't land in Florida, so it overshot and landed out on Edwards Air Force Base in California. And I don't know if you're older, if you remember these amazing images of a space shuttle on the back of a 747. They used to get piggybacks back across the country. Literally, it would sit on top. I have the passenger manifest of that flight. I knew every passenger on every seat number, congressman, senator, blah, blah, blah. Seat 37B, Commander Buzz Lightyear. NASA had promoted him. And I had the passenger manifest. And so we donated him to the Smithsonian, to the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. So if you're ever up in Washington, D.C. and you pop into the Air and Space Museum, you'll see a little Buzz Lightyear, gift of James Wardle, aged 8. I'm a great believer in if you think whether or not it's Henry Ford, isn't it? Whether or not you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. You've got to go in thinking you can. So I thought, all right, I haven't written a book before. So I thought, okay, well, what are the barriers to books? When you see a book in an office, right, a business book, where is it?
Don't know, shelf.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, it's on the shelf or the coffee table. We're busy. We haven't got time to read a book. So I thought, okay. So what book have I ever read, non-fiction, where I could read one page, don't have to read the rest of the book today, I'm busy, and I get exactly what I need out of it. I thought, my mum's cookbook. You want shepherd's pie? You got to pay 67. So I thought, right, I'll create the book the same way. So the contents page it's got these little bubbles and it says, have you ever been to a brainstorm where nothing ever happened? Go to page 62. Fed up of your boss shooting your ideas now? Go to page 12. So I'm trying to make it accessible to normal, busy, hardworking people. And then I wanted to make it not only fun, but a good learning experience for people. So let me ask you a question. Close your eyes. Let's see if this works. It might not, but we'll find out in a minute. How many days are there in September?
30.
Keep your eyes closed. How did you know? How did you remember? What did you learn, or what can you see with your eyes closed?
Well, for me, it's the rhyme. It was the school rhyme.
Okay, all right. So you can open it. So 30 days has September, blah blah blah. And you've just told me one of your preferred learning styles is auditory. How do I know that? Because you were 6 when you learned it. But how did you remember it when I asked you the question? Because you'd heard it, right? Probably read a lot. It's an auditory style learning. You ever seen anybody count their knuckles and start going January, February, March, April, May, June, or do you think I'm mad? Right. So believe me when I tell you, you learned that, but you don't remember it that way because that's not your preferred learning style. That's kinesthetic. That's people who learn by doing. About 40% of the audience will just close their eyes and go, no, 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 I could just see a calendar with the number 30 and the word September. They're your visual learners. So I've designed the book, having never done it before. It's got QR codes in each chapter. Not all of them are live yet, so you won't have been able to experience all of them. They go live, God willing, on December the 10th. It's got a Spotify playlist with each chapter for the auditory learners. It's got animated Duncan, pops out of the book with 3 little characters, and I'll explain who they are in just a minute, for the visual learners, to explain how to use the tools and the behaviours. And then come December the 10th, fingers crossed, it'll be the first integrated artificial intelligence book published. And I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, but I've got a good group of people who do. And so you'll be able to ask the book questions through the QR code on the back of the book. And we're already testing it. The book answers you through ChatGPT. It's bloody amazing. So, so that'll be fun. And then the reason I created the characters, these are they, Spark, Zing, and Nova, is because I'm a Disney guy, right? Got to have characters. So I thought, all right, people buy stories, they don't buy products. So I thought, right, so I created this character called Archie. Well, why? Well, because when you ask people, actually we'll do a test. Let's see, close your eyes. Where are you usually, and what are you doing when you get your best ideas?
It's the unconscious thing, right? So it's when you're not thinking about it. It's when when the brain's inactive and you're allowed to.
Yes,
where am I?
When you're
shower, dog walk's a good one for me. Yeah.
So about 80% of the people always say the shower. So I thought, okay. So I created this character called Archie because his ancestor was obviously Archimedes, who got his best idea in the bath. My daughter walks in the door. She's in her 20s. She looks at him. She goes, Dad, he's an old white guy. You can't do that shit anymore. You're an old white guy. I was like, oh, right, fine. So I created these 3 new little characters. Spark is masculine. He introduces you to the creative behaviours. Zing, gender neutral, introduces you to the energizers. And Nova, female, and she introduces you to the innovation tools. But I've got 3 principles. Take the BS out of innovation, make it accessible to normal, hardworking, busy people. Take the intimidation out of it. Make creativity tangible for 50% of us who are uncomfortable with ambiguity or grey. Far more importantly, make it fun. Give people tools they choose to use when we're not around. At Disney, we had a 3.5-year wait list for what was a 2-day voluntary training course about how to use these tools.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing, it's plain to me as someone who also kind of coaches in creativity and is fascinated by the topic. That accessibility is doing what education, particularly in developed Western countries, has failed to do systemically and historically, and made so many people feel stupid because of the types of intelligence thing.
Couldn't agree more. Look, the most employable skill sets of the next decade, what are they? Because I'm working out with Google on their DeepMind project, which is their AI robot. I said to the lead engineer, I said, well, how the hell am I going to compete with this? And she goes, well, with the things that will be hardest for her to program. I said, well, what are those? She goes, well, you were born with all of them. Creativity, you used to play with the box, not the toy. Curiosity, you used to ask why again. Imagination, right? Empathy and intuition. We're born with all five. And then what happens? We go to school, and the first thing our first grade teacher tells us to do, just as you said, is don't forget to colour in between the lines. Our imagination, creativity is shot down by the age of 6, and then they tell us to stop asking why because there's only one right answer. So I thought, okay, I intuitively believed what you had said, but I wanted to prove it to myself. So I went to Yale University up north of New York, and I had 3,000 university students, all between the ages of 18 and 24. And I brought in one first grade class of 36-year-olds with their teacher. I sat them right in the middle. I said, right, hands up, who's creative? Me. Didn't hesitate. And the other 3,000 hands stayed down, as they always do. And yet here comes AI, right? It's going to take away so much of what we as humans can do. But we shouldn't be frightened of AI. You can be frightened of man's stupidity, but I wouldn't worry about AI. The number one barrier when I ask people what gets in the way of being more innovative and creative work, number one response, I don't have time to think. Well, what do you think AI is about to give you? It's going to do your weekly reports for you, your expense reports for you, your Excel documents for you. Yeah. So AI is about to give us the biggest gift of all. It's going to give us time to think.
Interesting. Never thought about that side.
Yeah, education kills everything. Just seriously. It just
yeah. I mean,
it's served us well. We've gone through since just take 2020 to 2024. Never mind the fact that children are still learning the things I learned in school, and let me tell you, that was a while back. We've had a global pandemic. We've got Generation Z entering the workplace who believe in purpose versus profit, so they don't want to work for most of the big employers. We've got climate change. Anybody who doesn't believe it, come and look at my back garden. It used to be a back garden. It's now got alligators, fish and snakes in it, and it's about 5 foot deep. That was Hurricane Milton 5 weeks ago, and it hasn't receded yet. Yes, climate change is real, people. And then we've got AI. So in 4 years, the world has changed irrevocably. So we don't get to think the way we thought 4 years ago. We must now think differently. So the tools are specifically designed to get us out of thinking the way we always do and give us permission to think differently, but make it easy. Make it fun. So there's one for all the rule breakers out there. It's called What If. It's my favourite tool because I like breaking rules. You just list the rules of your challenge as quickly as you can. Don't think about the rules, or you start thinking of all the reasons you can't break them. Then you pick one, ask the most audacious what if question. It was created by Walt Disney for the film Fantasia. He wanted to pump mist and heat into the theatre, and the theatre owner said, no, Walt, that's not the way we do it here. We tried that last year. That won't hit our quarterly results. So Walt listed the rules of going to a movie theatre. I must sit down. I must be quiet. It is dark. I must pay to get in. I must watch the previews. I, Walt, the producer of the film, cannot control the environment. So he listed the rules and he picked one. And he said, well, what if I could control the environment? Well, he couldn't. He didn't own the movie theatres. Besides, that wasn't provocative enough. The more provocative, audacious and outrageous your what if statement, the further out of your river of thinking you'll jump. So he said, well, okay, if I can't control the environment, what if I take my movies out of the theatre? Well, don't be stupid, Walt. They're two-dimensional. They'll fall over. Or what if I made them three-dimensional? Well, how are you going to do that, Walt? Well, what if I just had people dress up in costume, like princesses, pirates and cowboys? Yeah, but Walt, you can't have Cinderella standing next to Jack Sparrow and Davy Crockett. People wouldn't be immersed in her story. Well, what if I put them in different theme lands? Oh, wait a minute, what if I called it Disneyland? Boom. Simple, powerful, fun. Now, a lot of listeners are going to sit there and go, oh, we don't have the resources. To which I would ask you, who are the most creative people you've ever met? Children. How much money have they got? Don't tell me we don't have the resources. But so I'll give you a small example because I want people to understand the tools can work for them. There was a very small company in Nottingham in the late or early 60s or mid 60s, before the days of mass automation anyway. Used to make glasses that we drink out of, and they found too much breakage, not enough production when the glasses were being shipped and wrapped. So they went down the shop floor, observed the process and wrote down the rules. 26 employees, conveyor belt. 12 glasses to a box. Box is made out of cardboard. 6 on the top, 6 on the bottom. Glasses separated by corrugated cardboard. Glasses wrapped individually in newspaper. Employees reading the newspaper. So somebody asked the somewhat provocative what if question, what if we poke their eyes out? Well, that's against the law and it's not very nice. But because they had the courage to ask the most provocative what if question of all, the lady sitting next immediately said, well, hang on a minute. Well, she jumped out of her river of thinking, her expertise and her experience, and said, well, hang on, why don't we just hire blind people? Boom. Production up 26%, breakage down 42%, and the British government gave them a 50% salary subsidy for hiring people with disabilities. List the rules of your challenge. Pick one and ask the most audacious, outrageous, provocative what-if statement. You'll be amazed at how it gets you out of your river of thinking differently.
Yeah, and I love that term, river of thinking, and we've all encountered it. And as you said in the book, you've been guilty of it yourself. I wanted to ask about your role at Disney, but with particular attention to, so famously Walt Disney, super imaginative, famous for all the right reasons. Was it an enabling culture, and did you face challenges? Because I'm looking at the corporate side of it now. So but
Of course, no. Look.
it seems that you've had your own real growth within the company from that river of thinking to the person I'm sat in front of now, which you seem an absolute bundle of energy, and I love that. Um,
I was the one breaking the rules every day. Legal hated my guts.
yeah,
But look, there are two sides. A big corporation, like any big corporation, there are always challenges as you grow. You can't have that startup mindset to a certain extent. But the Disney parks in particular, you've got third generation cast members. My mum worked there, my great grandfather worked, my great grand, and this is the way we do it here. And so so I tried four models of innovation. Model number one, I hired an outside consultancy. They were very good, very expensive, but they were never around for execution, and they weren't going to show me how they did what they did, or I wouldn't hire them again. Model number two, we create an innovation team. Well, Duncan will be in charge. What could possibly go wrong? Well, when you have a legal team, nobody outside of legal does legal work. Nobody outside of sales does sales. Nobody outside. So when you create an innovation team, the subliminal message you've just sent to everybody else in the organization is, oh, you're off the hook, mate. The innovation team has to do the innovation. So that was a total and utter failure. Model number three was an accelerator program where we bring in some young technology partners that had an interesting piece of tech that we were interested in. We take a 50-50 stake in their business. The advantage to them was Disney could help them scale it, because that's what Disney does. The advantage to Disney was we could bring products and services to market much quicker than we normally could, because they weren't encumbered by our turf and our politics. But we'd still failed in our overall goal that was set for me, was how might we embed a culture of innovation in creativity into everybody's DNA. That's when I came up with the idea for the toolkit, which I've been polishing ever since, and finally got a chance to actually put it down in paper. It is, again, I've said it before, but it's about making tools that are powerful, simple and fun.
brilliant. And that was rolled out, what, company wide or with?
Yeah, we ran it. We used to do the training for Pixar, Lucasfilms, Marvel. So basically, my sort of what I do today is that, yes, I give speeches, obviously, but I love training. I love getting in and training. People don't learn by listening; they learn by doing. And so to stand on a stage, I know I can, I hope I can inspire and motivate people. But then, you've been to a conference where you leave like, oh, yeah, that was great. And a week later, somebody says, so how was the conference? You go, oh, I can't remember anything. It's like, no. So I love doing workshops. And the biggest barrier, believe it or not, is not paying me, because companies have got lots of money and training budgets, they've got one. It's giving their employees a day of training, which I think is really sad, but that's the biggest barrier. And then the stuff I really love, but it's still the smallest piece of work, is actually getting in there and helping solve some real challenges. I love doing that. And so to those people who say, I don't have the resources, I say this. I was tasked to go to the Dharavi slum in Mumbai 6 years ago, about 1 million people living in an area about the size of 8 Disney theme parks. And you would think squalor, and to a certain extent you'd be right, but the level of entrepreneurialism, creativity in that slum with the lack of resources would far outstrip any of us. Our task was to create light where there was no electricity, with no money. I thought, right, haven't got a clue what I'm doing, never been to India. I'll give it a go. So I was sitting in a cafe outside of the slum, which had electricity, sitting just out drinking out of a little plastic bottle. And I noticed the spotlight hit the bottle and it created a little ring of light on the table. I thought, oh, hang on a minute. So then I was just being curious like a child. I picked the bottle up and sure enough, the ring of light got a bit bigger. So I thought, well, hang on a minute. What if I take the advertising label off the side? What if I take the lid off? What if I stand on a chair and put the bottle closer to the light source? At about a height of 12 feet, and the bottle was about half full of water, I could get a ring of light out to about 3 foot. So I thought, So the bloke who was sitting there, it wasn't particularly bright though, so the bloke who was sitting next to me actually knew what he was doing. He said, put some chlorine in it, you'll magnify the light. All right, I'll give it a go. So we walked out into a hut next door, cut a hole in the ceiling, stuffed the bottle through it and lit the hut during daylight hours. Wrote to a mate of mine, I'm a great believer in you pick up the phone, you make your pitch. They can say yes, they can say no, they can put the phone down. Who cares, right? Nobody got hurt. So it was an old mate of mine from Disney, but he works at Evian in Paris. And I said, hey, dude, you're about to trash the planet with 1 million empty plastic bottles, right? He said, yeah, so what's your point? I said, well, I'll tell you what, send them to me for free. This is the project we're working on. I said, by the way, take your advertising label off the side. So they actually embossed it in clear letters. And they sent me 1 million bottles. They paid for the shipping. 6 weeks later, we lit 1 million huts during daylight hours where there was no electricity and no money.
Wow, that's incredible. And it does speak to that idea of like you said, that naivety, that curiosity, because okay, what was it that stopped you in that moment from putting a barrier up because you didn't have that expertise and skill set? Because that would be a default
So
mechanism for
that's
a lot of
see,
people.
that's the role of the naive expert. Now let's see. Have you got a pen and a piece of paper handy?
I've got a piece of paper. I can get a pen. Give me 1 second.
Right, hang on. Right. Well, let me get a piece of paper and a pen. I never have one handy. Hang on, bear with me. Oh, here we go. This will do. Let me just rip that off. Oh, this will do. Right. Okay. So, this I call them naive experts. So whenever I'm running a real session, a challenge, I bring in a naive expert. Well, what's a naive expert? A naive expert is somebody who doesn't know what you're working on. Well, why on earth would you bring them in? Well, they're not there to solve the challenge for you. That would be a spectacularly unrealistic objective. They are there, but because they don't know your industry or your line of business, they'll ask the silly question that you're too embarrassed to ask, but needed to be asked. They'll throw out the audacious idea ungoverned by your river of thinking, and that's the way we do it here. So we were designing a new retail dining and entertainment complex for the Hong Kong Disney Resort. In the room that day were the Disney Imagineers, the people you would expect to be there, the people who designed Disney parks. But on that day, I was faced with 12 white male American architects over 50. I was like, that's called groupthink. So I invited in a young girl from China. Why? She was female. She was under 20. she was Chinese. She was the antithesis of everybody else in the room, and she was a chef, not an architect. And I knew she would do or say something that would help get us out of our river of thinking. So, pen to the ready?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you the same challenge I gave them this day. I'm going to name an object. You have 7 seconds to draw it. You can look down. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Please would you draw a house? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. Share your genius. There you go, twins, baby, twins. For those of you listening in, we've both drawn one door. We both drew 2 windows. I'm more insecure than Ben because I put bars over my windows. But what shape is the roof? It's a triangle. Why? Because that's the danger of our river of thinking. All of our expertise and all of our experiences, that's what a house should look like. And all of the Imagineers drew exactly what you did, with the exception of one person in the room, the young female Chinese chef. She drew dim sum architecture. There was a little bamboo dish with a bit of steam buns on the top of the chimney. And we all laughed. But a Disney Imagineer put a post-it note over her drawing on the way out the door which said, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. 7 years later, the strategic brand positioning that guided the entire design of the Shanghai Disney Resort, distinctly Disney, authentically Chinese. The point is this, it's not rocket science. It's not design thinking. It's not innovative. It's that thing we leave behind when we go to work. It's called common sense. Diversity is innovation. If somebody doesn't look like you, they don't think like you. And if they don't think like you, shockingly enough, they can help you think differently.
Yeah, it's incredible. I use this one quite a lot, but I grew up in a town called Keighley in West Yorkshire, and it's a former working class mill town. And I heard a drunk person told me in the street that it was one giant Star Wars bar, and it's just a beautiful description. And I grew up, from as long as I can remember and before, unconsciously, I was drawn to these rich characters, to these wild cards, these people who had the myth around town. And I continue to enrich my life with those people because they continuously give me they get me out of that river of thinking, without a doubt. They give me great perspective, and not just in my work as an illustrator, they give me perspective in just ways of seeing the world. And it's beautiful. And I try to fill my life with as many people as I can. Part of the reason I do this podcast and the work around creativity, it's an amazing part of life to saturate your life with all those people. Because like you said, when you need an idea, when you need difference, that's where it comes from.
No, it's really true. So there's a thing called Cross You at Walt Disney World, where 2 or 3 days a year the executives have to go work in the park for 8 hours, an 8-hour shift, because we're short of staff. And they always give you the bum jobs like cleaning the streets or cleaning the tables, because that's probably the only thing that an executive can do, right? And I was in the American Adventure at Epcot, and I was trying to bust the tables, what you would call clean and wipe the tables. And by the time I'd done one, there was another one, and then another one, and I was just couldn't keep up. And there was this old boy, been there for years, right? He had a fucking, pardon my French, he had a fucking system down, right? And he nailed it. He could clean 50 tables in the time it took me to do one. Not quite, but not far off. And he took me aside and he showed me a system. I thought, Bloody hell. So we employed him to go train everybody else how to do it. And the guy was genius. And there's a great quote by Ed Catmull that creativity doesn't follow job titles, it just comes from where it comes from. And I'm a firm believer in that.
Hmm.
So one of the other things I really like to do is it's called how do I simply re-express a challenge to get you out of your river of thinking. So if I was coming to Salisbury and you and I were going to go into business together and we were going to open a car wash, tell me if you would the 3 or 4 essential ingredients we must have in a car wash. What are we going to have?
So sponge, big furry roller things,
Very roller thing.
people.
People. All right, so we'll stop there. Soap. What was the second one? Sponge, furry roller things, and people. Okay, so I tell you what, we're venture capitalists. We have been invited to open a new franchise of auto spas. Ooh, a spa. Now, what have you seen in a spa? What would you like to see in your spa? Anything you want? What do you want?
What, in an auto spa?
A spa. What do you want?
It's a normal spa. I don't know, warm water, slippers,
That's,
robe,
that's what the
um,
robes. Okay, what else?
tranquil music. Well, you can't see tranquil
Music,
music, but yeah, low lights.
mani pedi, champagne. So which one would you rather go to?
Well, I mean, me personally, the first one for different
Oh,
for the
you're right.
reasons
Okay.
aforementioned, but I get you. Yeah, but for a nice relax, of course. Yeah, yeah.
So in 2011, if we'd asked the question, how might we make more money, we'd have put the gate price up at Walt Disney World by 3%. But instead of saying that, we reversed the challenge and said, how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point? Everybody knew what it was. It was called standing in line. So I said, well, what if there were no lines? Didn't know how to solve that at the time. I mean, 25 million people walking through the gates, everything. So we looked outside of our industry. There's another talk called Where Else? It's about most of the insights for innovation don't come from looking within your industry. They come from looking outside. And we found a very small pharmacy in Tokyo, Japan, using RFID technology to enable people not to stand in line when they came to pick up their prescriptions. So Bing! Welcome to the world of Disney's Magic Band. It's a little plastic band. It sits on your wrist. It comes in red or grey in the mail. Why? Because you'll upgrade to the Star Wars edition or the Little Mermaid edition. Does it come with matching merchandise? Of course it does. It is your room key now. It is your theme park ticket. It is your reservations for your favourite meet and greets, your favourite characters, favourite rides, etc. You can pay for merchandise with it. You can have stuff delivered to your hotel room with it. If we'd asked the question, how might we make more money? We would have raised the gate price 3%, and we'd have made our quarterly results. You don't get to iterate in a post-pandemic world anymore. You have to innovate. So instead of saying how might we make more money, by asking how might we solve the biggest consumer pain point, the average guest at Walt Disney World by the year 2018, 7 years after we came up with the idea, has 2 hours free time each and every day that they didn't have 6 years prior. What has that resulted in? Record intent to recommend, record intent to return. And what is it we lovely people do with our free time in Disney parks? Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. The single biggest revenue generating idea in Disney parks history by not asking how might we make more money.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's
Watch
brilliant.
auto stuff. Now, and again, people listening go, oh, but we don't have the resources. No, this tool works for anybody. I was up in New York. You can use it on the smallest things. You don't have to, innovation doesn't have to be world beating, right? It's about making things better. I was up in New York waiting for an appointment, sat chatting to the young lady behind the reception desk. I got upstairs. I said to the boss, your receptionist, so lovely, so empathetic, so helpful. He goes, oh, that's nice to hear. He said, so how long were you chatting to her for? I said, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, I suppose. He goes, oh, well, that's odd. I said, well, why is that odd? He said, well, we don't have a receptionist. I was like, well, who the hell was I talking to for the last 10 minutes then? I said, well, hang on a minute. Her name was Sarah. She had a summer dress on because it had no sleeves on. He goes, oh, Sarah. Sarah's our director of first impressions. Like, boom. That simple, right?
Yeah.
Receptionist, director of first impressions. I mean, Walt created the tool. He said we won't have any employees, we'll only have cast members. We won't have customers, we'll have guests. With that simple re-expression of the relationship between the employee and the customer as the cast member and the guest, he created a culture of hospitality that's rarely been repeated elsewhere. So the tools are designed, again, simple, powerful, fun.
Yeah, and it's also about value within the company too for each of those people, isn't it, internally? Because it's a completely off-tangent example, but I'm a big Leeds United fan in football, and Marcelo Bielsa, when he took over the club, he wanted to transform the entire
I'm sorry, this
culture.
podcast is at an end. I'm sorry, did you just read Leeds United? I'm sorry. 1970. Sports night, Wednesday night was the first night I was ever allowed to stay up late for what was the FA Cup replay. I can't remember where it was, but Charlie Cook or David Webb, we won. We beat Leeds United.
My dad remembers it well, and I know it because of that.
That's all
Well,
I got.
but it's the same with Don Revy. If you want to go back there instead of
Oh,
Bielsa,
but the World Cup coin collection in 1970, Leeds player, Leeds player, Leeds player,
yeah.
Leeds. One Chelsea boy, and that was it. And he was a disaster.
I love that. But it's fantastic because whether it's Bielsa, whether it's Revy, I think any great sporting coach, but in that context, they transform the entire culture of a club. And it doesn't matter whether you're a person working in the staff canteen, right through to being manager on the pitch. It's about everyone is a part of that cause. Everyone is paid fairly, respected in their job, and valued. And when you achieve that, does that not foster an open-minded approach? And
I mean,
I think
I
that's
was
when you
I
get
was
people
surprised.
contributing.
I used to bring one of my jobs back in the day was my job was to bring the MVP of the Super Bowl to Disney World the next day. So I literally had to follow them around all the parties and then get them on the plane and get them down to Disney World. And I didn't realise that it's not the team that gets the Super Bowl ring. Every single person that works in that stadium, the bottle brusher, the front desk lady, the guy who sells ticket, every single person in that organisation gets the Super Bowl ring. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, and I see it repeated across creative agencies, ad agencies, whatever business. When you see that in a business, invariably they're the ones that are producing the coolest work, the most
Yeah.
innovative ideas. When you
So
walk into those
so
places,
when we were sending Buzz Lightyear up into space, we thought we'd create a training video for YouTube. And we were just brainstorming ideas, and my secretary, Trish, lovely, lovely lady, she comes popping and she goes, well, I said, well, how do we test centrifuge technology? She goes, I'll take him home and stick him in my dryer. We'll film it. And it was absolutely brilliant. It was Buzz Lightyear with some towels going around in Trish's dryer, and it went gangbusters.
but again, isn't it? It's school, it's creativity, and it's. I have a friend who refers to it as kitchen table creativity, and
Yeah,
it's people working with scarcity, and it's something I ask my clients to do if they've got in their river of thinking and they've been. So I'm coaching a guy at the minute who got caught up in big tech, Apple, Google, wanted to get out, trying to find his feet just now. Scarcity is one of the first exercises I give them. Take away your key tool. Can you still produce work that sings from your heart?
yeah.
And at first you see people kind of go, oh, what? I can't use, Photoshop or whatever it is. Very interesting because it forces creativity.
No, it's true. I mean, look, that Dar es Salaam, I learnt a lesson that day. Oh, the time I was there. India will be the world's largest superpower by 2017, not China. Why? Not because their population surpassed China last year, but it did. Not because a much greater percentage of their population is under 25, which it is. Not because a greater percentage of their population speaks English, which the Chinese don't. It's because a much greater percentage of their population can't afford to go to school. So nobody's killing their creativity. Nobody's killing their innovation. They are built 1.4 billion entrepreneurs against the rest of the planet. Don't stand a chance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because people have to find out for themselves and they think different. Speaking of that, can we touch upon your background a little bit? I'm interested. How did you okay, instead of asking for a career path, let's talk about you a little bit because I'm really interested by your energy. It's fantastic. And were you always like this? Were you, were you a
Yeah,
bouncy kid?
probably. I was a disastrous student. The only A I ever got at school was absent because I didn't show up for the exam. And the only university I went to was the only one that accepted me. So I thought, yeah, I'll go there. And I was looking for Mickey Mouse on the. I was looking to see if he'd been chosen for the rugby team for the weekend. There was a picture of Mickey Mouse. He thought, what the hell is he doing there? There was a chance to go and meet an American. He thought, oh, all right, I'll give it a go. There was the chance to go to a place called Florida and work for a year. And Disney was going to pay for your airfare, your apartment, and there's an outdoor swimming pool. You're like, what the hell is that? You thought, yeah, I could do this. So I went along for the interview, and there was at the end of the presentation, there was a chance to do the interview for the job. And there was a lady, she was already seated behind the table when I walked into the room, and the table had that, table skirt around it. And we've become great friends over the years, Becky. And at the end of the interview, she stood up. Now, don't forget, this is the first American I have ever met. And she's 6'5". And all I could hear was 2001 Space Odyssey playing inside my head. I was like, oh my God, I'm not big, that big. So went out to Disney for a year. At the end of the year, I ended up working at a pub in Dorking called the Punch Bowl, probably still there. And but I'm a great believer, if you want something, go get it. right? And so persistence is one of the things that I think made me successful. At the Disney office in London in 1987 had 26 people. Today it probably had about 2,500. So jobs were at premium. I phoned a lady called Julie every day. She was the lady who answered the phones every day at 10:30 a.m. For 27 consecutive days until she got so fed up of taking my call, I was made the coffee boy. It was a part-time job. I used to go and get my boss 6 cappuccinos a day from Bar Italia on Frith Street, which I still visit when I get over to town. And about 3 weeks into the role, I was told, right, we need a character coordinator. That's the person that looks after the walk-around characters. At the royal premiere of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, this is 1988, I think it was, in the presence of the Princess of Wales, Diana, I was, oh shit, well, what do I do? They said, well, you got to go meet the royal protocol officer. You go off to meet the royal protocol. And one must not approach the Princess of Wales. Should the Princess of Wales approach one must not extend one's hand. Should the princess extend her hand, one must merely touch it, not shake it. And I was like, what? He goes, well, he says, imagine how many hands she has to shake. I thought, well, yeah, I forgot about that. So anyway, my job was simply to stand at the bottom of the stairs in the Odeon Leicester Square. That's all I had to do. Roger Rabbit would come down the staircase. The Princess of Wales would come in along the receiving line of the celebrities. The last celebrity she would greet would be Roger. She'd move into the auditorium. How could you possibly screw that up? Well, yes, I did. That was the day when I found out what a contingency plan was, because I didn't have one. A contingency plan would tell you if you're going to bring a very tall rabbit with spectacularly long feet down a staircase towards the Princess of Wales, one might want to measure the width of those steps before the rabbit trips on the top step and he's now hurting like a bullet, head over feet, at the speed of a torpedo towards Diana's head. The noise was like buffalo. And out of nowhere, 2 Royal Protection officers just pounced. They just bang. And there's a great picture. You still find it in Reuters in black and white of Roger going back through the air like this. 2 angry guys in suits diving towards him. A little 21-year-old little PR guy from Disney in the background going, oh shit, I'm fired. So I thought, well, there's no point going to work tomorrow. So I get a call from Los Angeles, from Burbank, which I'd never heard of, from a person called a CMO. I didn't know what a CMO was. I was a nobody. And I thought, I was going to tell me I'm fired. And all I heard was, that was great publicity. It was like, oh, who knew I could make a career out of this? And so look, when somebody said, I bet you can't do it, I was like, come on then, bring it. So probably the most fun, silly project I ever worked on was Thanksgiving, which is it's tomorrow in the United States of America. And it's a big day in the US. But every year since President Eisenhower, the President of the United States of America, believe it or not, stands on the lawn of the White House and pardons the turkey. This is the only turkey that isn't going to be served up on somebody's dinner plate, right? It's an annual tradition. Don't know why, but it's great fun. The president does it every year. So Disneyland, it was their 50th anniversary. The actual anniversary was over, and I was in PR at the time. And I thought, well, how do we get coverage for a celebration that's already over? I said, well, what other events in the American calendar do the media have to cover? Well, Thanksgiving came up. I said, well, tell me about Thanksgiving. He said, the president pardons a turkey. Now, Disneyland's brand position is the happiest place on earth. So I said, well, so this turkey doesn't die then? They said, no, that's right, he's pardoned. I said, well, that would make him the happiest turkey on earth then, wouldn't it? And they all looked at me like, oh, don't even go there. So like I said, I'm a great believer. You pick up your phone, you make your pitch. So I phoned up the White House director of comms. I said, what do you do with the turkey after the pardoning ceremony? He goes, oh, we just put it on a petting zoo. I was like, oh. We give it to the National Turkey Federation. I was like, oh, okay. Couldn't give me their phone number, could you? So he gave me the phone number. So I phoned the president of the National Turkey Federation. I said, what do you do with the turkey after the party? So he goes, oh, we just put it on a petting zoo, mate. I said, well, can I have it? He goes, yeah. I thought, well, aren't we going to haggle or something, negotiate? Anyway, now I learn more about turkeys than you could possibly want to know. Turkeys, when grown to an enormous size, as the turkeys that go to the White House are, have heart attacks and die like that. And I thought, oh, great, you want coverage? I'll get you coverage. The one turkey pardoned by the President of the United States of America is killed by a British PR guy in a stunt for Disney. So in a moment of complete and utter stupidity, you know those decisions we make on the fly and you think, oh, this seems like a good idea. We sent Pilgrim Mickey, the walk-around character, with the parade music up to the turkey's pen for 3 weeks, so there's no surprises on the day, climatizing. And then what happened next? So... Then I phoned the National Turkey Federation. I said, you have told the White House that Disney's taking the turkey, right? They said, no. I said, we're going to have to do it because we're a very commercial enterprise. We're going to do a TV commercial out of it. Turkey 1, you've just been pardoned by the President of the United States of America. What are you going to do next? Gobble, gobble, I'm going to Disney World. So I thought, this is dead. Well, we get a call back. He said, yeah, President loves the idea. Like, just. So then I get a call from... the chairman of the company, he said to Duncan, I see you booked the private jet from Washington, D.C. out to LA to Disneyland on Tuesday, the 23rd of November. Can you tell me what it's for? Well, Jay, I've got to move a couple of turkeys, mate. He goes, absolutely not. I said, well, hang on, Jay. The President of the United States of America says he's in. If you cancel the private jet, we can't do it. And you know, you're going to kill the biggest PR stunt of the year. He goes, I don't care. We're not putting turkeys on a corporate jet. So I thought, okay, whether or not you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. So I phoned the director of comms up at United Airlines. I said, what would it take for you to give me the emails of everybody in first class on the 10:53 out of Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, the 23rd of November? So, needless to say, those people got lovely Disney vacations for a very long time, and I locked down first class. So now I'm in a meeting. It was one of those meetings that I'll never forget. It was probably the best meeting of my life. You know when people take things too seriously, and it's the VPs, the SVPs, the EVPs, we're all around a table. Operations, animal welfare rights, communications, public affairs, opera, entertainment, and the sole conversation for 2 hours around these most senior executives were, if the turkey dies halfway down the parade route, will we run out and shroud it, or we just look the other way? I was like, I can't believe it. Anyway, Denny from Entertainment, and this is this is the side of Disney I loved. Whenever you threw a challenge, it was a badge of honor. If you say, could you solve it in 30 minutes? They'll, I'll do it in 5. So Denny from Entertainment pops out of nowhere. He goes, stands up. He goes, do you remember the old spy movies, the black and white ones? I was like, Denny, you want to bring that up right now? He says, yeah. He goes, remember when the good guy gets away from the bad guy and he gets up against the wall, he's got nowhere to go, and part of his body hits a panel on the wall and he zips around, he's on the other side. I was like, yeah. He goes, I'll build you one of those. We're going to put, because he said, by the way, the turkeys that go to the White House travel with a stunt double. I was like, God bless America. He goes, we're going to build you a float with turkey 1 out the front, right? Turkey 2 out the back behind the curtain. If turkey 1 goes down, boom, I've got your back. I was like, oh, I love this company. So now we're about a few weeks away from launch. Bird flu hits the United States of America. Oh, it's like, for God's sake, could you put any more? But it was, again, whether or not you think you can. So I phoned up the director of comms at United Airlines again. I said, look, we're going to have a bit of fun with this because people don't want to sit next to turkeys. And he said, all right then. So when we got to the airport, this is in the days before the electronic billboards. But remember the ones that used to that lovely noise? Well, they'd worked with the Federal Aviation Authority. Nobody told us. They changed the flight number. Instead of saying UA253, it rolled down and it just said Turkey 1. I was like, you've got to be kidding. Piss take of Air Force One. It was brilliant. So we get on the plane and there's a little postcard on each of the seats and it said, ladies and gentlemen, in honour of today's guests, the turkeys who've been pardoned by the President and United States, we will not be serving turkey sandwiches on today's flight. We will be serving ham and cheese. So everybody got into the spirit of it. So now we're down to the actual day, and we did this with President Bush. We did it with President Obama. I can't remember. We did it for about 7 years. So President Bush, he had brilliant script writers. And so they decided to have a bit of fun at Disney's expense, but nobody had told us in advance. So we walk in, President Bush comes in, he goes, this year, Marshmallow and Yam, which was the name of the turkeys, they were a little nervous about going back to a place called Frying Pan Park. I was like, who the hell called it Frying Pan? And he says, so this year the turkeys are going to Disneyland. And I was like, oh my God, did the President of the United States of America just say the turkeys? And he goes, not only that, they will serve the rest of their days at Disneyland. I was like, oh my God, I can retire. So he wraps up his speech, he says, and finally, Marshmallow and Yam will serve as Grand Marshals in Disneyland's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I was like, that's it. My career is here. I'm out. Thank you very much. So he walks out of the room. The head of entertainment of the Walt Disney Company is looking really pissed off, comes screaming across the room at me. And I thought, dude, this is the best day of my life. Chill. And he goes, we don't have a Thanksgiving Day Parade. I was like, oh shit. He goes, well, he says, it's in order to build 2 floats in 3 days, it's going to cost you $250,000. I said, well, Matt, the President of the United States of America says we're doing it. I've got no money. Over to you. And that's what I loved about Disney. So 2 days later, Marshmallow and Yam came down the streets of Main Street, USA at Disneyland as Grand Marshals in Disneyland's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So whether or not you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right.
So did you always have that? Did you always have that mindset? I mean, were you an optimist growing up? Did you always, because I believe you would have to be to have that to go from that position, from getting a job there, serving coffee.
Optimist or stubborn bastard. I mean, I was told by one of those, career counselors when I left university, I'd never get to the United States of America and would never work for Disney, so give up now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Fuck you. Right? I mean,
that's interesting. Yeah. Because one of the things that I really took from the book was getting people to have fun and breaking out of that mindset of I'm not
Well,
creative. I can't.
yeah,
I'm,
so
so
here's the important. This is so important. I'm not playful for the fun of it. So when you ask people where they are when they get their best ideas, I've done it with 20,000 people in an auditorium. They say shower, bathroom, walking, jogging, and you get them to write it down. Nobody, and I mean zero people, ever say the words at work. Well, why not? Well, because when we're at work, we're very busy, right? So why do we never have our best ideas at work? Well, picture the last verbal argument you were in with somebody. You turn to walk away from that argument, and what spontaneously just pops into your brain the second you turn to walk away? The killer one-liner. That one perfect, beautiful line you wished you used, but you didn't, did you? No. Why not? Because when you're in an argument, your brain is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. When you're at work, your emails, presentations, reports, and bosses and deadlines. And I hear myself say, I don't have time to think. When you say I don't have time to think, you're in the brain state called beta. I call it busy beta, where the official name is the reticular activating system. Nobody remembers it. Just call it a door. When the door between your conscious and subconscious brain is slammed shut, then you only have access to your conscious brain. Do you know what percentage of your conscious brain is? 13% of your brain is conscious, 87% of your brain is subconscious. Every meeting you've attended, innovation you've seen, creative problem is back here to serve as unrelated stimulus to help you solve the challenge you're working on right now. But when you're in beta, you don't have access to it. What do? That's the whole chapter on energizers. What are they? They are exercises specifically designed to make you laugh. Why? Not for the sake of laughing, because the moment I hear laughter, I know that metaphorically I've just moved you from beta into alpha, where you are when you're in the shower. When the door is wider open between your conscious and subconscious brain, you can still make an informed decision in the shower, but you still have big ideas. Option B, ask your boss if you could bring showers to the office. But so energizers are important. I don't expect people to be playful every minute of every day. Life will be great fun, but we won't get much work done. I do expect people to be playful at the right time.
yes, yeah, and it's guardrails, isn't it? That's the beautiful thing about this book is it's it's giving people the guardrails to be creative, but it's I think it's dispelling a myth that creativity is some kind of innate random genius that just comes to us. It's actually it's getting, like you said, it's getting people to laugh, it's getting them in a playful environment. But then the depth of the exercises and the processes and the descriptions in the book blew me away because it's fantastic. It's you know it gets people. It's Nova, isn't it? The robot character.
Yeah.
Yes. The Nova, the section led by Nova, I've lost the term off the top of my head, but as it gets deeper into the book, is incredible. And I read through it, it's like, oh, this is brilliant. This is guardrails. It's putting people in a position to be creative,
Well,
but it's
so
breaking down
yeah,
innovation
I
and
told the
imagination.
publisher. I told that we had a massive fight with the publisher. I said it's not a book. He said, what do you mean it's not a book? I said, nobody reads books. They haven't got time to read a book. And I said, it's got to be fun and it's got to be tangible. People want to know what to do tomorrow. I've got a deadline at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Oh my God, what can I use that could get me now? And make it fun. So I want to use it 3 months later. That's when you know you're changing your culture. I wanted to give it away for free. Needless to say, the publisher had a slightly different point of view on that. I'm still convinced I want to try and give it away free for students because by the time they're 18, they don't think that we define creativity now as the ability to paint or write music. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Creativity is the ability to have an idea. We all have 100 a day. Innovation is the ability to get that idea done. That's the hard part, and that's what the tools are for.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely that. It's the I call it the common misconception, and it's thinking of that you have to separate artistry and actual creativity. Artistry
Yeah.
is wonderful, of course. The two have
Yeah,
got
of
a
course it
famed
is. Brilliant.
historic relationship. However, everyone is creative. Not everybody's artistically inclined. They can be, but
Totally,
some
totally.
people have a starter pack that is more conducive to artistry. That's the difference, And once people click, I had a conversation. I wrote this in my own book. Um, the guy who built this glorified shed that I'm sitting in now in my garden, he's a DIY guy. But at that time, when he was making this building and he was asking me questions for specific areas, he was being far more creative than I was. Now, I was working on a big illustration project, but it was draftsman work. I was creating
Yeah.
portraits that were aesthetically beautiful. I was given reference. I could listen to things, watch things. My brain could float away. It's fine. I wasn't being creative. I was being artistic. He
Yeah.
couldn't get his head around that. So we went for a pint of beer and I told him why he was more creative than me on that day. And he went home believing he was creative. And before that, he didn't. And I wanted to record that interview for my book. I knew I could convince him. And it was a
No,
lovely, it was a lovely moment.
The pint of beer was the best compliment I was ever given. I was in a workshop. It was a one-day workshop. I was training a group of about 150 people out in San Francisco, and there was this elderly or older gentleman there who'd obviously been through 1,000 training sessions and got nothing out of them. So I asked the group at 1 minute past 9 in the morning what were the barriers to being more innovative and creative where they worked. And he grabs the microphone, points at me, and says, "Having people like you coming in and teaching us how to," I was like, "Oh, great, this is going to be a terrific day." So I fell on the floor, pretended to have a heart attack. Everybody laughed. What I was actually doing was giving myself time to think. The guy was just being honest. I mean, he'd been brutally honest, but he was being honest. He'd been to 100 sessions. They were a waste of his time. So I just caught him off to the side just before we got into the session. I said, "Listen, you're registered. Your boss thinks you're here. If you don't want to stay, it's not on me. But if you stay, I'm giving you back the microphone at 5 o'clock. And you can either say, Duncan's full of shit. That was a total waste of my time. Or I'm going to buy Duncan a pint." I got my pint.
That's tremendous. Yeah, that's. Let me ask you about the creativity's bigger picture, and I ask you this because you mentioned climate change earlier. I recently had as a new dad, I was knackered, I was vulnerable. I got really quite weighed down by that and other world issues. I've since worked on a lot of thought processes, and as part of that kind of personal healing process, creativity, I accepted this was my cause. This has been my obsessions for many, many years, and I began to see its value and its necessity in the world that we live. I'm not saying that you would share the same noble cause, but the work that you're doing, I think, is vitally important because a friend recently said to me that under capitalism, it has to be business that leads any significant change. They kind of hold the keys. So creativity, if we can elevate its role in society in business, I think it can't not have a major role to play. It's why we're here on this planet, or at least a major part of that reason. I don't know where I'm going in terms of a question, but do you get what do you see its power in the bigger world, and does that come into your thinking in making a book
There's
like
the
this?
pessimistic side and the optimistic side. The pessimistic side is this: we've got real issues coming, right? There's no governance around AI. We got away with the internet. We said, "Oh, we'll look the other way. We'll be fine." Well, okay, yeah, right. Probably wouldn't recommend doing that with AI. As long as there's governance around it, you go back to Asimov's 3 rules of robotics. If we just use those, that's a bloody good place to start. But here we are. We've got climate change. We've got hunger. We've got all these other issues. We can't agree on what day's Mother's Day. Yours is in March, ours is in May. We can't agree on what day to put the clocks back. You put yours in September, we put ours in. If we can't agree on what day to put the clocks back, it's like seriously. But I think that look, I wake up every day excited about AI and terrified about AI. I'm right in the middle, and I'm not terrified of AI. I'm terrified of man's stupidity. But I do fundamentally believe that as human beings, we hold a skill set that will be very hard to program into AI for a period of time. How long will that be? I don't know. We're born with all of them: imagination, creativity, curiosity, etc. But where do I think we'll be 200 years from today? As we seek better life, better health, and an elder life, we are already beginning to take on spare parts. We can have cataract surgery, we can have pacemaker surgery, we can have prosthetic surgery. And so as we seek to be older and a better quality of life, we're going to take on spare parts, like a second-hand car. Now, a heart essentially is a pump. And at some point in the next 100 years, they're going to figure it out. We'll be on our 5th pump. So then you think, okay, so where will we merge? Well, here comes the Neuralink. At some point in time in your children's lifetime, Ben, they will not carry one of those. They will have a choice to have something inserted into them, which will probably be about the size of a nano sort of bot. And now, so when you were a kid, how many phone numbers did you know of your mates? You knew all of them. How many do you know today? None. Why? Because your brain is like a hard disk, and it just figured out, oh, the phone's got that. I don't have to remember that anymore. Well, now imagine your phone inside your head. We will be a walking Wikipedia. We will be capable of infinite thought. We will merge with technology. That technology and algorithms and robotics will come into us, but by prosthetics, by cataracts, etc., etc. We will take into the equation creativity, imagination, curiosity, empathy, and intuition. We will merge to become a superhuman race. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Well, I mean, it's terrifying for our generation, right? But your children will be your children. AI, not only, I mean, touchscreen technology, since the day they were born. Augmented reality, since the day they were young. AI, it's here now. By the time they're 18, then Neuralink's going to be around. They'll be piloting it. They'll be testing it. They may not get it till the time they're 30, but they'll get it. But so it's all these things that we're a bit nervous of. I was nervous the day they put a fax machine in my office.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, this is
around it. We all stood around it like, ooh, like, what is this, a spaceship? What does this do? And then comes the computer. We didn't have computers when I started work, and we were all absolutely terrified. There are jobs. Did Facebook exist before a computer? No. Did Google exist before computers? Did augmented reality? Did virtual reality? Did gaming? No. So all of these new industries just popped out of nowhere that we could never have predicted. So some jobs will go away. Of course they will, but there's going to be whole new industries to be created that we can't begin to dream of today.
Yeah,
And the ones the twins playing in.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, you talk about some of the uses for AI that I've been reading about, in relation to climate change and all that recently. It's mind blowing. I talked to a Polish microbiologist who's studying the gut microbiome using AI. This stuff, it blows my mind.
Oh, right,
it's beautiful, like you say. The flip side is scary, but I think if you can find a baseline of optimism and you can see the value of teaching people to be creative and imaginative, then I think it gives us a better chance of landing on the right side of it.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot. This is incredible. I think the book is amazing. Did you say 10th of December it's out?
10th of December it's out, and hopefully everything will be up and running.
Well, it's quite the feat. I'm really quite wowed by the, like you said, the AI use and the QR codes. There even
honestly, I'd like to say I did it for the benefit of the consumer. That's a lie. I did it because I didn't know how to do it.
Well, but actually, that is something I wanted to just pick up on briefly because I'm a big. Well, you said it about India. I'm a big believer in the going the other route, the untrained, bringing that naive experts. A lovely way to look at that. I think it's all the better for it. I didn't know how to write a book either when I wrote my first book, and I'm very proud of that as a body of work because it was raw, it was honest, it was me because it was the only way I knew how to do it.
Well, I'd never been on a green screen with a bunch of animated characters before.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure, Duncan, and I thank you very much for your time. And I will put all the links to the book and everything in the show. And
thank you very much.
I hope a lot of people grab it because it's given me a lot of pleasure and a lot of useful things to think about.
Lovely to meet you. Thank you very much indeed.